Hi, everyone, and welcome to another segment of Trish Time. Today, we're honored to have Sarah Bracey White, the Executive Director for Greenburgh's Arts and Culture Organization. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Trish. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being on the show. Why don't we begin with you telling us a little bit about the Arts and Culture Organization here in Greenburgh?
Well, Greenburgh has always been a supporter of the arts. We're one of the few municipalities in Westchester that has had a long-time director of arts and culture. I was interviewed first for this job after the long-time director, Madeline Gutman, had died. And I began, I guess, in 1993. And one of the questions that they asked me was I creative? So when they interviewed me, I'm like, yes, I'm creative. I'm a writer and I do all these other things. But this job entails more than just being creative. I began by going out into the community and asking people what they wanted to do and how they wanted to see the arts expressed in Greenburgh. Madeline Gutman had done a series of lectures and exhibits and a poetry contest, and I wanted to expand it beyond that. So one of the things that I found everybody wanted was to show their art. I had no idea that I guess there were 83,000 people in Greenburgh when I began. I had no idea so many of them were involved in creative arts, not so much the performing arts, but in creative arts. So because we had the old town hall, a gallery there, I began to exhibit art there. Then Theodore Young Community Center did an expansion at the same time that we moved to this new building, and allowed me to make the arts accessible to everyone without concern to their financial ability to pay for access to the arts. So this brand new building that we moved into, was it 14 years ago, some long period of time, 10 or 14, had wonderful walls, and I arranged to do an installation of a hanging system, and it just became the home for local people to come in and show their neighbors what they were doing. So we did that. We did a poetry contest. We expanded it. We began to have programs in the auditorium on Sunday afternoon where poets came when they won the contest, read their poems, brought their family members, and it became a community-wide thing when I added one other aspect, printing a publication of their work each year. So I did that. Then one of my neighbors rang my doorbell, a 9-year-old, and said, "Can you get my stories published?" I started laughing. I'm like, I don't have any access to the publishing world, but at the time I was in a writing group, and I designed a writing group for children between 9 and 19 who love to write. That program is now almost 20 years old. So we do that program. It's on a rotating basis, and we have from 20 to 50 kids, 3 teachers. Then out of the poetry contest, we had all these poets who wanted to share poetry with the world. So we began something with a woman named Usha Akila, who was a member of our community. She thought the idea up and was the early person who implemented it. We hooked up affiliations with Burke Rehab Center, with homeless shelters, with all these different places, with hospitals and nursing homes and assisted living facilities. So we designed this thing called the Poetry Caravan, where poets in groups of 2 or 3 go and spend an hour either reading original poetry or the established poets in the world to patients. It is a fabulous program. The poets who do it love it. We get social directors at these programs who call and say, "I've heard about this. Can you come to our residence?" Now, we do it in places where people are elderly and are beginning to have dementia. They get up and recite poems they learned in their youth. So this becomes an activity for them. So we do that, and we've had art exhibited in town court. In Theodore Young, when they expand a building, you know, children like to draw on the walls. They never draw on the walls at the community center because we have a children's gallery where we exhibit their work. So in addition, I have to write grants to get funding and contact community groups, and Artists are always inviting me to come see their studio and see their receptions and vet them so they can show at Town Hall. And I tell people, you don't have to be an established, highly seen artist. If you're willing to show your work to your neighbors, all you have to do is get on my list. You can call me or stop me when I'm in Town Hall.
So you were discussing about how you help put the artwork on the walls here, and you actually rotate the different collections that come in. But you've also helped different organizations here in town, like the library and the health center. So you want to speak a little bit about that?
Well, Paul Feiner is one of my biggest supporters. Paul goes to art receptions and talks to these artists. And he comes to all of our shows. He sees all these things in the building. He sees it when he goes out into other town buildings. And he came to me when they built the Greenburgh Health Center and said, I told them you would help them put art on the wall. So I'm like, okay, I'll go see them. So I sit down with Judith, the director, and say, so what kind of budget do you have? And she says, we don't have a budget. So I'm kind of apprehensive, and I said, well, let's see what I can do. I put out a call to all the artists who I had shown in various public venues over the last 20 years. Artists in Westchester stepped up, and I simply asked them to each give me one piece. Many people would give me three. One woman invited me into her house to go into her garage and take anything I wanted. She said, I'm going to die, and my children will not know what to do with these, and they've taken the ones they like. So we were able to find them. Sandy Fishman, a local photographer, had done a collection of underwater photography that she had laminated. I was able to put them so that when you lie back in a dentist chair, you look up and you see an underwater picture. That's very soothing. So we were able to fill that two-story building with original art, not prints and copies, but original signed art. So we've done that. I also get calls from people who have pieces that are too big to be in their house. As artists get older, they begin to weed down their collections. So I'm known as the go-to art lady. So I get strange requests. I had a young man graduate from SUNY Purchase who had outdoor sculptures that he didn't know what to do with. So I helped him find spots in Greenburgh. One at the Greenburgh Library, one is in front of Greenburgh Town Hall, one is at the Hartsbrook Park in Hartsdale. So all these pieces are outdoors in spaces. We had a family that owned a large parcel of property, and they had an outdoor, very expensive piece of art that they wanted to donate to the arts and culture. We're a 501c3, so donating to us gets them a tax benefit. So we arranged to have that piece put at the Greenburgh Library, and the town parks people developed a little park around it. So there's a bench and there's this, and people come and sit there in the summertime and the spring.
Is there any, I did notice a while ago by the train station that there was a little bit of a rotation of pieces that were displayed there. I mean, obviously now, you know, the Hartsdale train station was recently inaugurated for the vets.
Yes.
But is that going to be another space where artwork can be displayed?
What I tell people is I'm a part-time consultant to the town, and while I give advice, there are things that don't fall under my purview totally. Anthony Veteran Park, the park in Hartsdale, the Vest Pocket Park is what they call it, is not my venue, although I have arranged things there. Neither is the Greenburgh Library. So when people ask me, the interior of the library, their gallery, when people ask me for help, I provide it. I'm a consultant to the town on a wide basis, but I'm not responsible for that in the same way that I am for the multi-purpose center in Anthony Veteran Park. We do rotations there. Theodore Young Community Center, the Madeline Gutman Gallery, and the second floor gallery at Greenburgh Town Hall. Those four are mine, so I have to keep the exhibits rotating, and I do them every 2 months.
Okay, so that was a question I was going to ask, is how often? So you're saying every 2 months, and for as long as people get on your list.
My list is already full for 2017, can you believe, for the main galleries. However, the second floor gallery, the multi-purpose center, I still have openings for that. One of the other things that I do is Theodore Young is the home base for the Evergreen Club, the Chinese American Club. They do photography, they do calligraphy, they do painting. And what I do is at the center, when I don't have a children's exhibit, I rotate their exhibits when they undertake a specific project, because I feel that their work is wonderful. And it's really nice that they see it. But whenever I put it on the walls there, the kids who come through the center are so excited by it. I have the best job in Greenburgh.
It sounds like a really interesting and fun job. But the other part of it too, and what struck me, and one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on the show, is not only to expose the fact that you exist in the town, but also because we understand that, you know, there's been some government cutbacks with regard to the arts, and there's not much of an outlet for people to express themselves. So in the town of Greenburgh, we have you, thankfully, to help with this expression. Now, you did speak about writing programs. So you said that you have a writing, is it a short story program for children?
The program is called the Kids Short Story Connection, and I brought with me one of the products that we produce out of this. It's a little book called Short Stories by Me. Okay. What I found is that this book serves to make the kids happy to see it. They get their name in a book and they get their stories. I try not to over-edit them. But this book goes out to every library in the Westchester County Library System.
Oh, okay.
So what it does is, in addition to public readings that we have, last year we were at the Dobbs Ferry Library. We've been at the Greenburgh Library, where the kids get up and read excerpts. And what it does is we invite the community to come in and see what these children are producing. So this program, when I die, this is what they're going to talk about at my funeral. They're not going to talk about the fact that I'm a writer, I've done anything else. This program takes children who love to write in much the same way that children who like theater can join a children's theater group, or children who like soccer can join a soccer group. Writers, children who write, have nowhere to go other than showing their mother or father their story. This program brings them in and gives a peer arrangement where they sit around a table with other children in their age range and in their writing ability scale. And they back and forth discuss, under the guidance of an established writer, teacher, adult, but they critique each other. And kids are much harder on each other, but they're more receptive to learning from each other than they are from an adult in this circumstance. So we really build an equal playing field where we highlight the importance of what they're doing and the validity of it. And when they see this book, it's like, I'm a real writer. My story's in a book. And across the years, my kids have gone on to do fabulous things. A young man came in one Saturday morning. We meet on Saturday mornings at Greenburgh Town Hall from 10 a.m. until noon. In the spring, over a 12-week period, and in the fall, over a 12-week period. So the building's closed to just everybody but us. So I get this young man who's in his 20s with a goatee and a 3/4 length trench coat, and I'm saying, well, he certainly looks like a filmmaker. He's too young to have a parent here, and he's too old. So he comes to the door, and I let him in, and he says, you don't remember me? And I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't. He said, I'm Zach Wiggin. And I went, oh, Zach. I said, you've really grown up. He said, I came to invite you to my angel party to fund a film I've written. And I said, Zach, I'm not financially able to fund a film. And he said, I want you to be there so I can introduce you as the person who made it possible for me to write my screenplay. That's important stuff for teachers.
Yes.
And my kids send me notices. A young woman had plays produced off Broadway who graduated from this program. I have another one who is a writer for a pop magazine who interviews all the stars that teens love. So my kids have gone on and they talk about this being the place that helped them establish who they were and feel strong enough to go out in the world and say, I'm going to be a professional writer.
So you've talked about having writing for children. Is there something for adults as well?
Yes. My Poetry Caravan allows poets to read their work aloud. But Brenda Connor-Bay, who was our first poet laureate in Greenburgh, long before she died, instituted a program called Learning to See. In conjunction with the Greenburgh Library, I have teachers and they're teacher poets, who conduct workshops. They're 2-hour workshops once a week over a 3-week period. So every month we have a different teacher who does this three-session thing. They use the visual arts to launch original thought. And they write poems based on visual things, like they will use work that's on exhibit in Town Hall, work that's on exhibit in the library. And that program is limited to, I think, 12 people each session. There's always a wait list. People come into it because they've retired and they're looking for things to do, or you get young people who want to be in a writing community and they go and do that. So we do that, and we've had the Friends of the Greenburgh Library have been very supportive in helping to fund it so we can pay teachers. At times I've gotten support from poets and writers. The Kids Short Story Connection is supported by the Westchester Arts Council with funding from the New York State Council on the Arts Alive. So we keep trying to find ways to fund these activities. I'm a believer that we should be creating art. I think that in our community, the ability to watch the performing arts is very high. But the creating part has been what I've focused on in my tenure.
Mm-hmm. And do you have if I do remember from the website, there was some mention of a potluck.
Oh, I'm always trying to give poets and writers an opportunity to be seen, to be in the spotlight. You know, it's like having a baby. You ever notice, no matter how busy this mother is with this new baby, they dress them up in the afternoon and put them in the stroller, and they push them down the street and smile as everybody says how nice your baby looks and how pretty it is and all this. When you write, you've created a baby. Again, children show it to their parents. They don't get to show it to anybody else. These writers in these workshops listen to each other, but they don't get a chance to share it with the public. So once a year, in May, I think May or June, whenever the series ends that year, we have what we call a potluck, where every poet comes and brings 2 or 3 poems, something to eat. And they usually do it for like 6 or 8 people. So we invite the public to come, share a potluck, and spend an hour and a half listening to original poetry. It is a marvelous event. We get people who join the series after that saying, oh, this is wonderful, because you get men who say, I'd never written poetry before, but I always wanted to. And I joined this group, and it's marvelous. And all of these groups are peer groups. It's called Find Your People when you get old, so you can be happy doing what you all like to do. I've tried to provide that in Greenburgh. Mm-hmm. One program that I'm very proud of that I've not been able to keep going because we haven't been able to fund it, it's called Matters of the Heart. As artists get older, they're not able to do one-man shows. So what we did, Karen Savell Greenbaum helped me put together. They came to me with this project and asked me to be the fiduciary, and I was like, I can't just stand on the side. I have to help you. So we got to the point where we had 100 to 125 artists over the age of 55 who each gave us one new painting that they had created within the last 3 years. We mounted it in Greenburgh Town Hall, did a series of workshops where we helped them with ideas. Some people wanted to sell. We gave guidance on selling your work and pricing it and how to work in collaboration with other artists. And we had a reception every year. We took the show from Greenburgh Town Hall down into the Andrus home for the aged and exhibited there. Then we went to Fordham in White Plains. So it got around and it was seen. On our opening reception at Town Hall, we had 300 people one year. And my funder said, I heard people complaining that the halls in Town Hall aren't wide enough for all the people who are here. She said, I wish all of my projects that I fund were this successful. The artists, we pinned corsages on each participating artist. And these older artists brought their children and their grandchildren, and they talked about the sense of empowerment it gave them. They may no longer be able to paint 40 new pictures a year, but they could paint looking forward to this group show. My husband used to call it the Love Fest.
Well, okay, so you're saying that Matters of the Heart, that could it still continue? Or
sure, all I've got to do is get enough money to pay the woman who puts together, who gets the movement, who takes things from here to there, pay for our workshops. We brought in people who worked with them to do the workshops. It wasn't just, bring me your picture, let me hang it on the wall. It was a whole project that gave them this sense of community. We had on what we call drop-off days, where they gathered for coffee, things to eat. They spent 3 or 4 hours talking to each other about what they had done in the years since they'd seen each other. I had a woman whose husband had died on the day that we did the drop-off, and her children insisted she come and bring the pictures she'd been working on, come to the opening reception, because she needed something to keep her going. So I knew we were of value. So if I can get enough funding to get that project going, I've got the building, I've got the group of people. We had a group of volunteers who came and did various things, but you can't do everything on goodwill.
Absolutely.
At times I had, Chase Bank used to fund us. At times we got money from Verizon. But as the years, as money's gotten tight from corporations, we've not been able to get as much funding to do these things, because all of my programs are self-sustaining. The town does not pay money to keep the programs going.
So that's maybe one thing where we need to talk off camera on how to keep this going and keep making plans for this wonderful event that gets people together. And like you said, there's not enough space even for the people who want to participate and see, what their neighbors are doing and all of that, and create that sense of community again around the arts and the creative arts as opposed to the performing arts. As you were talking about writing, and there was an older gentleman that said that they always wanted to write poetry but weren't able to. In my case, and I was a lot younger, I used to journal. And I think we did speak about this, and this was my way of expressing myself, because at that time I felt like I didn't have anyone to speak to. So definitely with writing, this is one outlet for children and even adults to express themselves. Maybe they're not thinking that it's creative, but it's writing, any kind of writing, an expression of self, an expression of your inner self, whether it's seen or unseen, is creative. And definitely this program, like I said, we'll talk about Matters of the Heart off camera and see how I can help with keeping that moving forward. And as we come to the end of the show, are there any events coming up? Is there something that you'd like to talk to?
I've just mounted a show that will be on exhibit in Greenburgh Town Hall until the 15th of January. And it's a fascinating show of photographs by a Greenburgh Parks and Recs foreman who has gone into New York City at night for the last 13 years because he loves the lights of Christmas. His show, when he first talked to me about an exhibit of Christmas photos, I'm like, okay, how many Christmas photos can you look at? The Rockefeller Center tree and when he brought me those 85, there are pictures on the first floor and the second floor. There are 85 photographs that are absolutely breathtaking. There are no people in these photographs. He goes at night when everything is quiet and takes pictures. It's a marvelous exhibit. I'm about to mount a show down at the Multipurpose Center in Anthony Veteran Park by the Color Camera Club of Westchester. I haven't seen the show, so I can't tell you what it's going to be. But those are the things that are coming up. And one of the things that I've been doing lately is when you talk about funding, you've got to be creative because the world changes. Amazon, which is supplying everything for the world, has a program where they make donations to 501c3 organizations like the Arts and Culture Committee. It costs users nothing. All they have to do is go to Amazon Smile first and designate arts and culture, and they can give us money.
Okay, so we've reached the end of the segment, and thank you very much, Sarah, for being here and speaking to us about the Arts and Culture Organization here in Greenburgh. As Sarah mentioned, if you go to smile.amazon.com and choose Greenburgh Arts and Culture, a donation will be made, and this would help with the Matters of the Heart event that we spoke about. And again, if there's anyone out there that's interested in helping us out, I'm going to say us because I would like to be involved in this, having heard about it, please do come forward and reach out to either Sarah or myself, and let's keep this going. So thank you very much again, Sarah, for being on the show. Thank you, everybody. And once again, this was Trish Time. Bye-bye.